has been a very interesting week for Alabama football as we have returned from the break on In My Own Words, the podcast. Touchdown, Alabama. Magazine Stephen M. Smith. In the first segment, got a chance to discuss former Crimson Tide quarterback A.J. McCarron, who recently won his grievance case from the Cincinnati Bengals. And with the National Football League new year kicking off on March 14th, where free agency is concerned, Tide fans will get the opportunity to finally see McCarron go elsewhere and prove that he can be a starting quarterback. Definitely, I'm going to get into my 5 leaders where Alabama football is concerned in terms of spring ball, summer workouts, fall practice going into the 2018 college football season, among other topics. But for now, Nick Saban. Remember the 2009 college football season. Remember Crimson Tide, Pasadena, California, Rose Bowl. 2009 or 2010 BCS National Championship game of the 09 season. Remember first BCS national title under Nick Saban. First championship since Gene Stallings' 1992. Alabama, Texas. Nick Saban hit with Crimson Gatorade, looks at the fan base and says, "This is not the end. This is simply the beginning." And then, Nick Saban, this past season against Georgia, college football playoff national title game, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Nick Saban pulling the gutsiest of moves, switching from Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa in the second half. And what does the Hawaiian Punch, T squared, double T in the morning, what does he do? 14 for 24 passing, $166, 3 touchdowns, including the 41-yard game-winning dagger to Devonta Smith, Tay, Crimson Tide, 26-23. Saban turns to the crowd once again. This time, we are not done. Then he goes to Mobile, Alabama, Senior Bowl. Media all over him. Coach, who replaces Jeremy Pruitt? Coach, what's your staff gonna look like? Coach, we want answers, we need stories. Coach Saban, ease off. I'm the coach. I've been doing this for 11 years. When I'm ready to give you a press release, I will give you one. When I'm ready to answer your questions, I will answer them in my own time. You will be informed. Nick Saban, sticking to his guns. As of Thursday, yesterday, coaching staff finalized, press release out, made known, revealed. And we now have the positions locked in for 2018 where Alabama staff is concerned. Michael Locksley, we all know, offensive coordinator. That move was already set in stone. We have Josh Gaddis, whom the Crimson Tide brought in from Penn State University. He will serve as co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach. Dan Enos. If you have not checked out my podcast on Dan Enos, please subscribe to the Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube channel. That podcast right now at 30,000 hits, 30,000 views, But Dan Enos serving associate head coach, quarterbacks coach. Jeff Banks, Crimson Tide brought him in. Texas A&M University, tight ends coach, special teams coach. Craig Kulagowski, another big-time hire. Long-time assistant at Missouri, spent the last 2 seasons, University of Miami, Hurricanes. Assistant head coach, or associate head coach, defensive line coach. Carl Scott, Alabama bringing him in, Texas Tech University. Defensive backs coach. Tosh Lapoy, inside hire, moving from co-DC to defensive coordinator, defensive play caller, outside linebackers coach. Pete Golding, Crimson Tide, bringing him in. University of Texas San Antonio, co-defensive coordinator, inside linebackers coach. Brent Key remains offensive line coach. And Joe Panunzio moving from special teams coach to running backs coach, as Burton Burns, who has spent 11 years as Alabama's running backs coach, a staple at that position, one of the longest tenured on-field coaches to Nick Saban, has been moved to an off-field role, will serve as the assistant athletics director for football. Burton Burns producing 9 1,000-yard backs. Glenn Coffey in 2008, Mark Ingram 2009, Trent Richardson 2011, Eddie Lacy 2012, TJ Yeldon did it twice in 2012 and 2013, Derrick Henry 2015, and Damian Harris did it twice, 2016 and of course 2017 this past season. Burton Burns putting 7 running backs in the National Football League. Also coached 2 Heisman Trophy winners, Mark Ingram 2009, Derrick Henry 2015. Burton Burns off-field role. Joe Panunzio taking over, running backs coach. Got some big shoes to fill, but Nick Saban trusting Coach P. And has Nick Saban given Alabama fans any reason to doubt on who to trust, the people that he puts into respective positions? So, as we dig deeper into this coaching staff, number 1, Mike Locksley, offensive coordinator. Players love him. A solid inside move. We know he can recruit and develop talent. I've said this time and time again. During his time at Illinois, 3,000-yard quarterback in Juice Williams, 1,000-yard receiver in Aurelius Ben. During his time at Maryland, a career 2,000-yard receiver in Stephon Diggs. The main question for Locksley, can he call the plays, develop a scheme on the field, get guys in the right spots on the field, and have that balance? That's the biggest key for him. Josh Gaddis, coming out of Penn State, inherits a talented group of wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, Tyro Shavers, Xavier Williams, Jalen Waddle, whom a lot of people feel like will start next season, among others. When you look at Josh Gaddis, what he did at Penn State as the passing game coordinator, helped put Christian Hackenberg in the National Football League. Now, yes, Hackenberg has not panned out like people thought he would, but Josh Gaddis put him in there. Also, Trace McSorley, a 2-time 3,000-yard quarterback, 2016 and 2017. As far as receivers go, Chris Godwin, 2015, 1,000-yard weapon. And during his time at Vanderbilt under James Franklin, Gaddis produced a 2-time 1,000-yard target and 2-time first-team All-Southeastern Conference selection in Jordan Matthews 2012 and 2013. Very excited about what the young man Gaddis can do with the Crimson Tide's receiving corps. Dan Enos, associate head coach, quarterbacks coach. This was just huge. And he's taken mediocre, average, run-of-the-mill talent and has produced marquee, substantial, extraordinary numbers. Whether it was at Central Michigan, Arkansas, he's made a lot of coaching stops in his career. Of course, Dan Enos played quarterback at Michigan State University himself, but he's made a lot of coaching stops in his career. But at Central Michigan, from 2010 to 2014, he had Cooper Rush and Ryan Radcliffe, both were 3,000-yard quarterbacks. At Arkansas, from 2015 to 2017, had Brandon Allen, Austin Allen, both were 3,000-yard quarterbacks. And in that 2015-2016 year, had a 3,000-yard passer, and a 1,300-yard rusher. Dan Enos, smart. Once again, not a Kiffin, not a Mike Leach, not a Mike Gundy, not a Kendall Browse, but one of the sharpest offensive minds in the game in terms of play-action pass, balancing your power, your speed, your vertical pass and attack, and literally taking the top off a defense with downfield throws, stretching that field. Dan Enos, you can't beat that with a stick. He's the man, Dan Enos. Jeff Banks brought him in from Texas A&M. Been over this. 2016, the Aggies were 11th nationally in net punt average, 40.7 yards a boot. 2016, the Aggies led the Southeastern Conference in field goal success rate, making 86.7% of their attempts. Jeff Banks producing Josh Lambo, Daniel LaCamera from the punting aspect, Drew Kaiser, Shane Trapuka. In the return game, he recruited, he signed, he landed Christian Kirk, 6 career punt return touchdowns. Jeff Banks, no slouch, takes a back seat to nobody. Craig Kuligowski, associate head coach, defensive line coach. In the same way that Dan Enos took mediocre talent offensively at quarterback and produced greatness, Craig Kuligowski does the same thing on defense. Longtime assistant at Missouri, and he took guys that were 2- and 3-star talents and made them 5 stars, made them NFL caliber players. That's the mark of a great head coach, y'all. When you can take 2- and 3 stars, guys that are not supposed to make it, they're not supposed to ball. They're just supposed to be happy to be here, happy to be on scholarship, happy to get that tuition, happy to eat that free food, and you take them and you make them 5-star caliber players and NFL athletes. That's the mark of a true head coach, of a true coach on staff. Craig Kuligowski at Missouri put Sheldon Richardson, Michael Sam, Coney Ealy, Harold Brantley, Marcus Golden, and Shane Ray all in the National Football League. If you look at Missouri's time in the Southeastern Conference starting in 2013 and 2014, the 2 years in which the Tigers won the SEC East, got to the conference title game in Atlanta. Yes, it got thumped twice by Alabama, but it twice got to the SEC title game. The reason why it got there, Craig Kuligowski and that defense. And then you look at the last 2 seasons in Miami. Prior to him getting there, the Canes, terrible against the run, struggled in creating penetration to get to the quarterback, struggled in getting those negative plays, creating a push, struggled in the ability to two-gap and stopping the run. But upon Kuligowski's arrival the last 2 seasons, Miami, 81 sacks. They picked up 44 sacks last season, which led the NCAA. Of the 81 sacks combined, 56.5 come from defensive linemen. That is 70%. And when you look at what Alabama has returning, Isaiah Buggs, Raekwon Davis, both guys will be high on NFL draft boards when you talk Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Mike Mayock, Bucky Brooks, or whomever you look at. Buggs and Davis will be high on draft boards. They will both be back. Quinnen Williams coming back. LeBron Ray back. And in the 2018 class, you have Iyabi Anoma, Stephon Wynn, Christian Barmore, and Jerez Parks, who was a part of a 2017 class but had the gray shirt, comes in 2018. Oh, and not to mention how much Alabama loves to use the outside linebackers on the defensive line as pass rushers too, with Christian Miller, Terrell Lewis, Anthony Jennings, Jamie Mosley. Craig Kuligowski, big time hire. The Twitter sphere erupted when this was made. You had media pundits like Marcus Spears, Cole Kublik, among others, saying, this is huge for Alabama. This is terrible for the rest of the SEC because Kuligowski has scheme. Kuligowski's got swag. He's got sauce. I mean, look at this man's Twitter handle. The man's Twitter handle reads, and let's meet up at the quarterback. Let's meet up at the quarterback is his Twitter handle. If you're an Alabama fan and you are not salivating just off that, there's a problem with you. Big hire. Associate head coach, defensive line coach, Craig Kuligowski. Carl Scott, Texas Tech, defensive back coach. Solid hire, but I mean, to me, the defensive back coach at Alabama is the equivalent to the offensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic, right? I mean, Lane Kiffin is an offensive coordinator built in, but just so happens to be the head coach. So, this past year, Kendall Browse, and of course, next season with Charlie Weiss Jr., I mean, you're just making checks if you're those two guys. You're just nodding your head, making general statements saying, yeah, hang on, I'll transfer your call. Yeah. I mean, that's all you're basically doing when you're an offensive coordinator to Lane Kiffin, because he's the offensive mind built in that just so happens to be the head coach. It's the same thing here. Nick Saban is a defensive mind, defensive back, built-in coach that just so happens to be one of the greatest head coaches in college football history, probably in all of football. So when you look at Carl Scott, he's basically going to be making general remarks, checks, a couple of balances here and there, but it's Nick Saban that will be getting down in his stands at 66 years old, taking defensive backs through tackling drills, through angle drills, through high pointing the ball drills, yelling at them, throwing off his straw hat as he usually does. That's Nick Saban's baby. Carl Scott is just there holding the clipboard. But he will serve a purpose as a defensive backs coach. Tosh Lupoi, defensive coordinator, defensive play caller, outside linebackers coach, young at 36 years of age. We know the man can stomp down recruit. We know the players love him. This guy just has an energy and essence about him. Can he now be able to just call plays? Can he call plays on the field? And the biggest thing for him will be, where that secondary is concerned, replacing 6 defensive backs. Yes, you bring back Deontay Thompson, Shaheed Carter, Trevon Diggs, along with some other guys. You've got talented guys coming in with Patrick Surtain Jr., Jalen Armour Davis, Eddie Smith, Savion Smith. Got a lot of talented guys coming in, but getting that secondary in order would be the huge or the biggest challenge for Lupoi in terms of calling plays. But if he can do that, that just adds another big feather in his cap. Pete Golding working with inside linebackers. How well will he be able to mesh with Mack Wilson, Dylan Moses, Markel Benton, Keith Holcomb, those guys? If he can generate that mesh, that bond, that'll be really, really key. And then with him as the co-DC, more than likely he will be upstairs looking down, audibling out to different things. Hey, they're running this, let's change to this. Hey, they're in a run play, let's bring another guy down. Hey, they're in a pass, so he'll be up top, making sure that from a bird's eye view, is Alabama in the right call, in the right formation? But I like Pete Golding. Brent Key, self-explanatory offensive line coach. And I think this will be a huge year for him, because with the talent Alabama has coming back, when you talk Jonah Williams, Ross Pierce-Baker, Lester Cotton, Matt Womack, Brandon Kennedy, Josh Casher, Alex Leatherwood, Jedrick Wills, and especially if Leatherwood and Wills start, where do you put Jonah Williams? Do you keep him at left tackle or as an offensive tackle? Do you move him to center? But with the pieces Alabama has returning to this offensive line, Brent Key and this group has a chance to rival the group the Tide had in 2011 and 2012, a group that had the most decorative offensive lineman in Tide history in Barrett Jones. pairing him with Chance Warmack, DJ Fluker, William Blahos, Anthony Steen, Cyrus Kwanjo, Ari Kwanjo. That group was just sick nasty. When you talk about running backs were getting 5 to 6 yards a pop before the first wave of defenders can actually touch them. A.J. McCarron, 2011, 2012, twice completed at least 60% of his throws. 2012, remember, he had 2,933 passing yards, so close to a 3,000-yard season. 30 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, but this year's group has a chance to rival that. Of course, the 2011 and 2012 group had the man, Jeff Stoutland, offensive line coach at the time. Stoutland just coming off a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles, so Brent Key. Joe Panunzio is kind of the weird one in all of this because special teams coach this past season, and J.K. Scott did well, but J.K. Scott was a beast since his freshman year, so you can't really credit that to Panunzio because J.K. Scott, his first kick ever was 63-yard punt against West Virginia, 2014 in Atlanta, and I believe Bobby Williams was the special teams coach then, so you can't really give J.K. Scott as a check to Panunzio. And then you have the punt return game. Had some good moments, but you had guys that could not catch the ball cleanly. And then field goals. Andy Papanastis, I'm not going to kill him. He did have a steady year, but when the kicks mattered, had some moments of issues, especially at the end against Georgia. 36 yards, middle of the field. Doink! Shank! Pulling it to the left. Why? All of the issues of that occurring. So, when you look at Joe Panunzio going to running backs coach, once again, Nick Saban trusting that man, and if Nick Saban trusts him, he's been here 11 years as the head coach. I don't think Nick Saban has provided any reason for fans not to trust him. I just say Burton Burns was such a staple in that spot. He was such a rock. He was such consistency, dependability. You knew what you were getting with Burton Burns. Like, recruits knew what they were getting if they were coming in a running back. All Burton Burns had to do is flash the championship rings, flash the 5 SEC title rings, flash the 5 national championship rings. All Burns had to do is walk in and show recruits, you see Glenn Coffey, I produced that. You see Mark Ingram, Heisman Trophy winner, playing for the Saints, I produced that. You see Trent Richardson, Doak Walker Award winner, 3rd in the Heisman vote in 2011, I produced that. You see Eddie Lacy, you see TJ Yeldon, you see Derrick Henry, you see Kenyon Drake, you see what I did with Damian Harris, a 2-time 1,000-yard back. I produced all of that. Like, Burton Burns was a staple. Joe Panunzio, huge shoes to fill, but this coaching staff as a whole, Nick Saban, ready for this 2019 recruiting class and classes in the future, but he's also ready for this upcoming season. This is going to be the most highly anticipated spring since 2009. Alabama fans with so much juice. Media pundits with so much juice. Who wins in quarterback? What the offensive line is looking like? What the defense is going to look like? This spring game may very well be packed out with standing room only. And you better believe yours truly of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, I'm getting you all the information that I possibly can. We take another break here on In My Own Words, the podcast. Upon our return, we do get into the 5 leaders I have for Crimson Tide football going into next season. Also, we dive into my 6 players. Alabama's got 14 former players going to Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine on next week. I list my 6 that have to give a big-time showing. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're coming back. It's your boy, Stephen M. Smith, host of In My Own Words, the podcast. If you are a fan of this show, then I encourage you to subscribe to the Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube channel. Also follow the brand on Facebook, Twitter, and other forms of social media as we continue to bring you the best in Alabama football and Crimson Tide athletics.